other people, and they say, oh, it's above my head in Australia. So here's your two options. Wait a second, I'm looking south and I see the sun, and the people in Australia are saying it's above their heads. Well, then either Australia is on the other side of the ball, where the sun's still shining on it, or it's 30,000 miles behind me, and there's a magic sun in the sky that just manifested magically out of nowhere and happens to be placed exactly where the sphere Earth model says it should be. Do you understand how insane that is to be a flat earther at that point? Once you know that the sun is south of you, it's not even possible on a flat earth. There is no sun that's south of you when you're past the tropic. The sun should be behind you. It's in the north. So this tells you, and I saw somebody else say, well, Jeran, you can't show a sphere Earth model that shows a 24-hour sun. Like, what? Yes, you can. I'll show you. That's why we thought that there wasn't one, is because that is kind of evidence or proof, if you will, if you're going to give it proof, of a sphere Earth. So I was saying before that I think the reason this is happening is that because even though you could go, right, you could go if you want. Again, I granted it's an expensive trip, but I mean, what Dave Weiss did is Dave Weiss cemented the fact that he'll never have to go now, right? Because by saying that it was a trick, that they tricked people, then even if he got funded to go down there and he went down there, he would just say, oh no, that's a trick. So it's just an easy way out. No, it's just a trick. And then if somebody else went and said, oh no, I saw it, they would say, oh no, you were tricked. Do you see how kind of this is setting yourself up for an undebunkable position? You can't be falsified. Same thing with saying Satan did it. If you're going to start allowing that in scientific circles, like Dean Odell has to be removed from the scientific discussion of the shape of the earth. You don't invoke Satan in a scientific discussion. Sorry. It's just, you can go and argue religion if you want. You can argue whether or not demons exist and the jinn, and whether Satan and his demons are a third of the fallen angels, and if they're able to become sons. That's a separate discussion. It can't be involved in the scientific discussion. So at the end of the day, what's happening here is that you're becoming a cult, and I feel partly responsible. I was part of that. Not necessarily, like I had a problem with Ranty when Ranty left. And I think I even either did a video or I kind of went off on him at some point saying a bunch of shit. But it was because of the reason that he left, because he basically was doing all these observations, flat earth observations. And then one time he saw one picture that he didn't even take. It was one photo that made him change over to a globe earther. And I said, that's ridiculous. How could you have all this evidence? And then because of that one photo, you change over. Well, people are comparing that. And I'm like, no, there's no comparison. There's no comparison. He changed his mind based on a photo. I changed my mind based on the accumulation of impossibilities. And there are impossibilities that I thought and was teaching were fake. I said that there is no 24-hour sun in the south, that there is no South Pole. And these things must be so for the earth to be flat. Now, just because nobody else understood that, I understood it. I completely knew. I never thought I'd go down there. I never thought you would be able to go to Antarctica. I never thought that you'd be able to afford it, even if you could. So when somebody offers that possibility, you're like, yeah, I'll take it. But the flat earth is becoming a cult, or is a cult, and that's scary. I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to see it. Because what it seems to be to me, and we're going to look at something in a second, is it seems to be a religious position. Okay? Now, for me, maybe it's easier because I don't have this attachment to religion, that I'm able to look at everything and say, no, this is not right. It doesn't mean there's no God. It doesn't mean any of that. Even though people, I think, tend to think like, oh, if you're a globe believer, you're anti-God or something. Like I said, I think it's amazing if God created a sphere. It doesn't matter what God created. It's still impressive. But the place we live is impressive, whatever it is. So at the end of the day, though, I win, and Flat Earth is losing because I actually went and got to see it. Granted, I feel very lucky and very selfish about doing that, but I knew that by going down there, I would know. I would come back on December 18th, and I would know, or December 17th, whenever I got back, and I would know. So you guys are at home and not doing anything, and then judging others, critiquing others, even though what you're doing is just, you're completely off base. So stop arguing with people on Telegram over and over again, looking at clouds and saying that the clouds don't match when it's a different day and not realizing that. I mean, everything that you're doing is just terrible research. You're not looking into anything. You haven't done any research at all to keep claiming about the cloud cover and not go look at cloud cover and actually look at weather reports, to keep claiming about the temperature and, oh, it was supposed to be windy there and it wasn't windy. No, nobody ever said it's windy there 24/7. That's why they have that camp next to that mountain, so that it kills the wind, because that's not a very everything around that area is just flatness, and the wind comes in crazy. But when it hits that mountain and some other mountains around there. So the worst part is that you guys could go if you wanted to. You could still book a trip. You could still go down there. You could still prove people wrong, but you'll never do that. And I know that even if you did, you're just going to prove what we've said to be true. The trip was 100% legit. Sorry to say, I know you don't want it to be that way. 100%, you will never prove any part of it in any way fake or wrong, ever. And I know you don't care what I say, because you'd already be off this line of ridiculous research, but you're not. So you feel like you've really done something, you really uncovered something, and you haven't uncovered anything. So you can keep making your little debunk videos. You can keep yelling shill in the comments. I see it. Keep pretending like I don't exist. I don't care. Because I sit here, pretty warm and happy with my footage, my memories, and the satisfaction that I actually went and was able to show this to myself. And meanwhile, no matter if it's in 3 years or 5 years or 10 years, you're going to be right where I left you. Do you understand? Talking shit, accomplishing nothing, proving once again that Flat Earth is nothing more than a sad little echo chamber of cowardice and delusion. And that's a sad thing to say. I looked up to the community as like great researchers and very open-minded and detail-oriented. Now I just realize it's just a religious cult that won't look at anything that goes against their model, and and anything that goes with it is celebrated. More people have told me Joe Hamby's model proves the flat Earth. Alonzo's model proves it. Shane's model proves it. Like, you've never looked at those models. You've never even looked into them. Literally, somebody could tell you anything and you'd believe it, as long as it's from a flat earther and it shows flat Earth, even if it doesn't show it, right? So another thing I want to get into is about trust, because I feel like people all want to say now too, they're like, well, you say don't trust you, Jeran, don't trust you. Like, okay, you do realize that when people say that, they don't mean don't trust anything. Can you imagine the impossibility? You can't even drive on the road. Okay, do you realize when you come to a green light, you are trusting that everybody else on the road is stopping at their red light? Do you realize when you're going through a stop sign or an intersection where there's a stop sign, you are trusting everybody on the road? So we trust people constantly. Constantly. So we're not talking about that. I'm not talking when I say don't trust me. It doesn't mean just, oh, you can never trust people, Jeran. No. For instance, when somebody goes down with personal testimony and you've got 9 people who were all there and 9 people's stories jive and 9 people's video footage jives, that's when you can start to think of things as being shown to you. When they're live streaming, we're live streaming from Antarctica. Hello. I mean, it's crazy. At the core of human nature, I hate to use the word evolution, but the core of the foundations of civilization, if you will, is trust. Okay? Not blind trust. I don't mean that. Not naive trust, but the kind of trust that's reasonable, logical trust, if you will. Okay? That allows us to function in this world where we can't personally verify every single fact ourselves. Okay? If we had to doubt everything, then it would be, we'd have to personally go taste and measure and test every piece of knowledge and before we called it real. We'd still be in the caves arguing over whether or not fire was a government psyop. It's not.